Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to focus on Unit 2, Part 1, which is a poetry written by Kamala Das. She is basically from Malabar region in Kerala state, and today we are just going to focus about her life and her works. So basically she was born in 1934 and she survived till 2009. When we look at her writings, she started writing from about when she was about 15 years of age. When we talk about her works, she was really a very popular poet among the Indian poets and writers. She happened to use this confessional style of poetry as she was influenced by some of the Western poets like Sylvia Plath and others. When we look at her works, they seem to be more of emotional, and she tries to portray about women, society, and politics too in her works. Most of her works are autobiographical. When we talk about her works, she mostly speaks about her personal experiences. She is quite bold enough to talk about certain things which are said to be taboo. Okay, and she talks about how did she grew up, or how was her growth into the adulthood. This is what she tries to specify in her poems or in her works. So she happened to contribute to short stories, poetry, memoirs, and essays, and all these have brought her respect and also criticism too, as she was quite uh, she spoke about the emotions, and some of her works were more of feministic and actually bold, and people do not expect people usually do not expect women to be that frank, but when we look at her works, she is very much frank and bold, very sharp in her works. When we look at her pen name, as we have already discussed in the first poem under Unit 1, when we looked at life, we could see that there was a pseudonym or a pen name used by Charlotte Bronte, which was Currer Bell. So here there is a pen name given by Miss Das. It is Madhavi Kutty, which is a typical Malayalam name. Okay, so when we look at her works, she wrote in English and Malayalam too, and as I've already told, she is known famously or maybe popularly for her bold and frank expressions in her works. When we look at the background or maybe her family, she was very much inspired or maybe influenced by her mother, Balamani Amma. She was a poet too. She also happened to write lots of poem and stories too. So when we look at the awards, she happened to win Sahitya Academy Award and many other literary awards, which includes the Asian World Prize for Literature in 1985. So this is we can see the picture of Kamala Das here. This is the cover page of My Story. This is one of the autobiographical note, a book on her life. Well, when we look at the collections They include Summer in Calcutta, which was written in published in 1965, The Descendants in 1967, The Old Playhouse and Other Poems in 1973. So the Old Playhouse and the Other Poems usually consist of her childhood memories or something related to her autobiographical note from her childhood memories. So here she has written several other things, like a novel by name Alphabet of Lust in 1976, and the short stories A Doll for the Child Prostitute in 1977, and Padmavati the Harlot in 1992. So these are some of the things, and then she even wrote short stories in Malayalam. They were a collection of short stories. Thanupu, 1967, which means cold, and the memoir, which is published in 1987, which means Memories of Childhood. So when we look at the best known work of her, as we have already seen in the previous slide, we could see the picture of her on her book, what she has written, which is an autobiography. So this was actually, there in a weekly called Malaya Lanadu, which is taken from Malayalam. I'm sorry if I've spelled it wrong. Then when we look at it, it was written as a full form book in Malayalam, Ente Katha, in 1973. Then it was at last translated into English as My Story in 1976. It's quite an intimate work, as I've already told you. Her works are really very much deeply emotional, and then, as she was advised, if you want to, publish certain things, she was advised that her work should be quite emotional and then frank enough. So she started writing that way. She accepted things, and then she started writing things in a realistic manner. Well, because she has made her work more realistic, it could be regarded as a classic. Later on, when she happened to talk about her book, in which there were parts which were said to be fictional by her. In 1999, she controversially happened to convert to Islam, renaming herself as Kamala Suraya Das. Kamala Suraya or Kamala Suraya Das. So these are some of her works and awards and about her life in brief. So this is the biography, the book about biography of Kamala Das, and maybe you can further read about her, as she is one of the poetess whom we are going to go through in this semester for the poem entitled Punishment in Kindergarten. This is also a biographical note of her, where she tries to talk about the experience which she happened to go through when she was a child, maybe in her early schooling. She talks about the trauma what she has undergone in the schooling. This happens to take place in during the picnic in Victoria Gardens in Calcutta. So let us get to the poem in the next video. See you later. Bye bye.